Can you do the backgrounds like Daria and I did, where you blur the background? That might blur your stripes.
How do I know how to do that? I don't know.
Okay, so Sarah, if you see down there where it says stop video, if you click on that little arrow going upward, it's going to show you, it's going to have a part where it says choose virtual background, like one of the from the menu.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you click on that, first choice is none, like you don't, you got it.
See, the problem is it's coming from the front of me, not from the back of me.
Well, we won't hold it against you.
If I'm like this, just ignore all of that. If I sit really, really high in my chair, maybe that'll work.
Just give you a booster.
Very film noirish.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll declare today National Zebra Day.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, Edie.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with my introductions. Today we have Sally Kilpatrick, and I'm Liz Tully. I'm the president for 2022, and Daria is with me. I have to step out early in a few minutes, and she will continue the meeting without me. But for today's meeting, we have Sally Kilpatrick, and she is a USA Today bestselling author of 6 novels. She published her debut novel, The Happy Hour Choir, in 2015. And has written 5 more novels and 1 novella set in her fictional town of Ellery, which is very loosely based on her hometown of Henderson, Tennessee. Her latest, Much Ado About Barbecue, is a very loose retelling of Much Ado About Nothing, but with barbecue. So for those of you who are big Shakespeare fans, or those of you who may have read your last Shakespeare in high school, you can brush up and then read Much Ado About Barbecue. She's won multiple awards, including the 2018 and 2019 Georgia Author of the Year, the Maggie Award of Excellence, the Bookseller's Best, and the 2016 Nancy Knight Mentorship Award. She lives in Marietta, Georgia with her husband and 2 kids, and of course the obligatory cats, 2 cats. And you can find her at sallykilpatrick.com or on Twitter as Super Writer Mom. So without any further ado, it looks like we have a nice crowd, and I will turn it over to Sally.
All right. Thank you so much for having me today. I will say that I may have to ask y'all for some help later because I am writing my first mystery, or my first official mystery. And I'm going to give you some examples as we go through, and I'm sure some of you are better read than I am, but mysteries are what I read for fun. So I don't feel completely out of place here. Let's start with the romance part, because I just want to kind of give an overview of the things that I look at. And it's a compilation of all the things that I've picked up from Romance Writers of America, from Georgia romance writers, from reading good romance books. And the number one thing you should remember when you're writing a romance, and I don't think this is going to be a big problem for mystery writers, is that romance should not be the goal that your characters have. I think one of the reasons why there are so many romantic subplots in mystery is that the external conflict is already right there for you. Your external conflict is going to be solving the murder. A lot of what's going to make a successful romantic subplot is going to come with the internal conflict. But just in case, let's start with the infamous GMC. That's a book by Deb Dixon, Goals, Motivation, Conflict. And it is, when I do this, when I talk with other romance writers, I'm saying the goal is not to get married. That is not your goal at all. Because what you're looking for is that the romance is going to, in some way, shape, or form, complicate your other plot. If we're writing a mystery novel, then our goal is obviously going to be to catch the killer. Motivation can vary. Maybe it's an amateur sleuth who's looking for justice for a missing sibling. Maybe your character is a private investigator who's getting paid to do it. Maybe it's a police officer because it's a police procedural and that's their job. That's their motivation. And then, of course, the conflict is that the person doesn't want to be caught. Where this starts to get interesting from a romance stand is when you look at the internal conflict. And I've kind of, if you read Deb Dixon, she does GMC, both internal and external. But I find that it's more helpful to think of, instead of the goal, what you're looking at is the need. what does your character need? And that's going to go to the basis of a really well-rounded character. Does the character need community? Does the character need revenge? Does your character need justice? What is the need? And then to add dimension, what is the wound that caused that need? And often that's why you'll see stories begin with a info dump, because what they're trying to do is establish what happened in the past that created the wound, which means this character has to have a need, if that makes sense. Now I feel like I'm doing word salad, but basically, what happened to this character? Did they get dumped by a husband and therefore they have a hard time trusting themselves or other romantic interests? Is it like in the X-Files where Mulder's sister has been abducted by aliens? That's his wound. He couldn't protect his sister. That's also his need, which is to find his sister. And then what are the false beliefs that keep your character from addressing that need and that wound? I think that's why you see a lot of characters in the old noir. What is one of their coping mechanisms that you see a lot? Anyone? Yes. What is one of their coping mechanisms?
The men or the women? Because the men
Drinking.
drink.
Drinking.
Yeah.
Or women.
And the women sleep around a lot, so.
Well, everybody sleeps around a lot in noir, but the idea is there's this deep wound, right? And the false belief is that if I crawl into the bottle, if I sleep with another woman, if I do whatever, then I won't have to address this thing that I really need. And of course, noir is a little bit different because there's no correction to that, right? You expect that character, you expect Sam Spade to continue in the way that he has come. But for most of us, we want those characters to change. And another thing that and it just so happened that I was talking with an editor who does cozy mysteries, and we were talking about the overarching theme. And that's a thing to consider, because you're going to have a specific goal and a specific need for each book, but you also probably, if you're writing a series, you have an overarching goal, an overarching need that you're going to address over several books. All right, so let's think about, you've got your character in mind. You're like, who is going to end up with this character? Sometimes I think readers will point that out for you. They'll have their ideas on who a character should end up with. But as an author, what you want to think about to yourself is, how is that love interest the best possible person for my character and the worst possible person? Because the best part is what makes them fit together and click. And of course, the worst part is going to have something to do with the conflict that keeps them apart. Also, what secrets do they keep from each other? And of course, secrets in a mystery, that happens. Everybody's got a secret, right? Suspects, unless you're Hercule Poirot. I'm pretty sure you don't keep any secrets if you're him. And then, I already talked about the overarching theme goal. One of the books that I'm going to reference is Writing a Cozy Mystery by Nancy Cohen. And she says, in a series, you don't want to resolve the relationship by the end of book one, build it step by step, advancing or retreating each stage per book, which I think is excellent advice. Now, you've decided on all this, right? You got your characters, you know what they want, you know what they need. You have some idea of what they're going to accomplish in one book and what they're going to accomplish over the series. So specifically, Sally, how do I put romance in a book? Let's start with the 6 stages of intimacy. So as you're writing the book, the first stage is physical awareness. So that's the very first thing that's going to happen, is that your character is going to see this other person. They're going to notice them. They're going to notice their physical attributes. They may notice something they do personality-wise. Like if you've ever read the book Save the Cat, the idea that your character needs to do something towards the beginning of the book to make them sympathetic towards your reader. So it could be something like that. Often it's just purely appearance. Sometimes if you want to go what we call enemies to lovers, the two of them actually don't like each other at all at the beginning. And that's going to soften over the course of their relationship. But even if that's the case, then they probably find the person physically attractive and they're like, shame that that person's such a jerk, because I sure do like to look at them. All right, the next stage of intimacy is intrusion of thoughts. In other words, your character can't stop thinking about that other person. So probably in another chapter or two, they wonder what so-and-so is doing. Or maybe, again, if it's enemies to lovers, they're mad, they're irritated. I bet so-and-so is doing this thing that I don't like. Your next stage is going to be touching, and those are going to be very minimal. Like, think about both people reaching for the same thing and their hands touch. That's like your next basic intimacy. Hand to hand, hand to shoulder, hand to arm. From there, you might proceed to hand to cheek. You're keeping it very basic. You may backpedal. Maybe the spark is felt. Your characters are either intrigued by that or upset by that, so they back it up. Then you're going to get to kissing, and then more intimate touches, and then finally the sexy times. Over the course of a series, you might only get to intrusion of thoughts in book 1. You know, you might have some touching and a kiss at the end of book 2. You might have some retreating at book 3, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, if you write romantic suspense, part of the challenge there is letting your characters get intimate while they are in danger, which, if you're like me, you're like, hold up, there are people trying to kill you and you want to get to the sexy times right now. But that's just one of the challenges we face. Another thing you might want to look at is this book that I've already held up once. It's called Romancing the Beat. It's a cute little book by Gwen Hayes. Since I'm going to guess most of you are writing romance as a subplot, can I get some head nods for yes or no? Romance as a subplot? Yes. Okay, so you wouldn't need all of the beats in this book. Or, you could take the beats of this book and stretch them out over several. I know when I was talking with the editor for the Cozy series that I'm starting, she said, a romantic subplot, which I said, it's going to happen. I once wrote a novella about 2 old ladies spreading ashes across the state of Tennessee, and there still managed to be a romantic subplot between the 2 kids that they took to drive them across town. It's going to happen. I'm going to put a romantic subplot in there. She said, that's great. That works very well, but make sure that you don't actually get your characters together before somewhere between book 3 or 5. Gwen Hayes breaks it down into a 4-act structure, which I'm going to kind of go over briefly. And I think where it would be helpful for folks who are writing romance as a subplot is it helps you do that advance and retreat thing that Nancy Cohen was talking about. But basically, step 1 of a novel, a romance novel, is you introduce each character. Now, in the case of a mystery, you might just introduce basically your protagonist, although eventually you're going to have to introduce the love interest. And then you have the meet cute, which that's definitely romance terminology you want to think about and incorporate. What is the meet cute? Where do these 2 characters meet? My personal favorite meet cute of all time, as well as my favorite first line of a book, comes from Deanna Rayburn's Silent in the Grave. And the very first line of the book is, to say that I met Nicholas Brisbane over my husband's dead body is exaggerating. Edward, it should be noted, was still twitching. Wonderful first line, wonderful meet cute. So you do need to put some thought into where your characters are going to first meet. We're still in the first act. So the first thing is your character is going to think, no way, I can't be with this person because. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to have something happen that bonds those characters together. It could be they both dislike the sergeant in charge. It could be they're stuck in an elevator. It could be anything but something to bring them together. All right, Act 2 is where they start to fall in love. So you're going to start with another, no way can I get together with this person because. And then you're going to have the person think, well, this could possibly work, and have them think a little bit more about more about the attraction between the two of them, why they think it might work, and then maybe it could work. And then, you have your midpoint. That's often where a kiss will happen. Retreating from love is your third act. So then you have that little inkling of doubt. I don't think this could work because XYZ. Then that doubt's going to get deeper. Your character is then going to retreat. Everybody gets their shields up at that point, and then they break up. I use break up loosely because we're not talking about a teenager in high school. It's just an example of why these two characters are apart. The fourth act starts with another romance terminology that you need to know, the dark night of the soul, or they often call it the black moment. I prefer dark night of the soul, which is the all is lost point. Like, there's no way these two are ever going to get together. And then you'll have a moment where a character wakes up to some new truth. The grand gesture, which is another one for you to remember. And then obviously they get together. This is what wholehearted looks like, two people coming together as one, and then an epilogue. That's how you would do it in traditional romance. If you're writing romance as a subplot, you might skip some of those. You're definitely going to probably spread them out, although I have examples later of books where the author did not, and hit all of those in one book. And again, I'm going to say one more time, that's from Romancing the Beat by Gwen Hayes. It's an inexpensive little book, and it's just, if you get stuck, it's a good resource to go back to kind of look at the trajectory of the romance to see if you've hit all those beats. One way to stall your romance, and this works particularly well in any type of mystery plot, are interruptions. Your characters are about to kiss, somebody knocks on the door. So file that away as one of your ways of so maybe they're about to touch, their hands are about to touch, interruption, that sort of thing. Another thing that I like to use to show that a character is falling for another character is the use of gifts, judicious gifts. And I think that follows along with that area of, when you're starting to think about a person, or even as a good thing to put between the touching and the kissing on the intimacy level. And I'm not talking about flowers or chocolates. What you want to do if you want to have memorable characters is those gifts need to be something that's very specific to the character. For example, in my second book, Bittersweet Creek, Julian gives Romy a pair of work boots. This is not a romantic gift per se, but it's very demonstrative of who he is. He's a farmer. He notes that she's trying to wear her father's boots around and just stuffs some socks down in the toe of them, and she's tripping all over the place. So it's something specific that she needs, but it's also affirming because she's trying to work on the farm and she's been in the city and it's not comfortable trying to get back into the farm. That whole thing may or may not be based on some real life adventures I had, where I discovered that at the tender age of, say, 26, I could no longer pick green beans because I was apparently allergic to the vines, or the time that I snagged my leg in the electric fence, which, yeah, fun times. You get to taste metal for the rest of the day. It's good stuff. Another great example of a truly romantic gift is, I just finished reading this book called Get a Life, Chloe Brown. The character, the heroine, suffers from fibromyalgia, which means she has a hard time opening jars. And she's also forever losing her hair ties, which I'm like, yay, I actually have one here on the desk, but I am constantly losing hair ties too. And what the hero did was he got her a jar and her first of hair ties. And she's like, oh, he was paying attention that I am constantly losing these, but we put it in a jar and I have a hard time opening the jar. And then she realizes that it's one of those that has the little plastic thing, so you can just reach in and reach out and you don't actually have to unscrew it. And that's the sort of just really sweet, thoughtful gift that a character can give another, and it reinforces to the reader, these two people are actually in love. Now, my third and last example of this is my favorite. It comes from a Cressley Cole paranormal romance called Demon from the Dark. And the hero is Malcolm. He is a demon, but he also has vampire blood in him, because why not? It's paranormal romance. Let's get excited about it. And his love interest is Caro, who's a witch, and she ends up in this dimension where he is, and some things are threatening her. And he brings her the severed head of her enemy. And I actually read this and went, "Aw," which then I stopped and laughed at myself. But I thought, here you've got a character who is tortured, very tortured. He's been out of society for a while. But what's the nicest thing he can do for her? Take care of her, get rid of her enemy, bring her a trophy. So those are just some examples. Another thing you can have a character do is carry along something of the characters as like a memento or something. For example, if you've read the J.D. Robb Naked in Death series, at the very beginning when Rourke meets Eve Dallas, she loses a button on her suit and he carries that button around with him. So that's just another way to kind of signal that a romance is happening. And finally, I would be remiss if I did not discuss in the section on romance the both vaunted and hated love triangle. This is the point where I will confess that I stopped reading the Stephanie Plum series because I was like, girl, pick one. Oh my gosh. And that seems to be, a lot of people feel that way. Obviously, a lot of other people don't, because she's still selling books well into 28 or so. But all that to say, one way to manufacture romance in your mystery is to put that kind of love triangle there. In her case, you've got Morelli, who's the guy next door. He's a police officer. And you've got Ranger, who, it's been a long time, but he's like is he a bounty hunter, special ops, something like, he's a bounty hunter too. So you've got your bad boy and your good boy, and they're both equally attractive. And which one is your character going to pick? I would say go that way with care. It is not a way that I would go. I can't stand love triangles, but a lot of people love them. So I think it would also have to be something that you like. Like, do you really love triangles? Go to town. If you're like me and you're like, pick one, probably don't want to go that way. All right, so before I get into some examples of where you can find romance and mystery, does anybody have any questions here? Obviously, I'll have time for questions at the end, but yes. Although you're muted. Sarah, you're muted.
Okay. All right. So I'm a really new writer. I have one series of 6 books and I've started a new series, but I don't think I'm through with the 6-book series.
Okay.
I really want to write some more in it. I was just taking a break. But when you're talking about the overarching theme, my MC's husband was killed and it's a cold case.
Okay.
And so she's over the 6 books. Not only is she solving the other crimes, she's trying to investigate her husband's murder too on the side. And in book 6, that's resolved.
Okay.
And so would you stop at book 6, or would you now continue and give her a new?
That's what I would do. I would give a new overarching theme. Does she have a love interest at all?
Yeah, and a lot of things happen in book 6 that kind of lead to just like turning the page. Book 7 is going to be all new. It's going to have to have different feels because they've made some decisions, and her supporting characters have made decisions. So it's like a whole new world, but I want to keep going. So it would be, it's okay to.
Absolutely.
And how many people, writers I've read a few where for several books, they have a love interest and then they get engaged and then they get married and then they keep going as a couple. Is that?
I'm going to talk about that next, because Yeah.
Right. I just
Got
didn't know, I mean, that's going to change the dynamic, obviously.
Yes, and
And
I think
so-
you're approaching it. I think you're approaching it from the right standpoint where I have finished this thing before I start on the next book. What's going to be my next overarching theme?
Okay.
And it could be that you're thinking about if your couples actually get together, what things are they going to what are they going to face? Like, are some of the conflicts going to be, we've got to figure out how to merge our CD collection, or of course it can be things that are far more far more important than that as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
We have a comment in a chat box, and then Yvonne asked if you can name 6 stages of intimacy again, please.
Okay. Oh, absolutely. Now I've got the chat open. The 6 stages of intimacy are, you're going to start with physical awareness. And then you're going to have intrusion of thoughts. Then you're going to have touching, like hand to hand, hand to arm, not the kind of touching that's going to be labeled as PDA. Well, I guess holding hands is, you know what I mean. Number 4 is kissing. Number 5 is touching more intimately. And then number 6 is, of course, actually having sex. And I can type those out. If I went too fast again, let me know and I'll type them out. And then I've read somewhere there's a love triangle, but one of the men turns out to be a bad guy and the other one saves the heroine, and then they get together and live happily ever after. Oh yeah, that's another way you could do it. And I was just reading a book. I think a lot of times in mystery, as part of a twist, it's kind of playing with you, is the guy that you think is a good guy is actually the bad guy, and the guy that you think is a bad guy is actually the good guy. That's another, I think that happens. That happens a lot in romantic suspense. All right, so now let's talk about romance actually in mystery. And expectations, which I'm blessedly talking to a group of people who are well versed in reader expectations, because you well know that if you have a mystery and at the end of the book you don't catch the killer, you're going to get some angry reviews, right? A thing to remember about romance is if you don't have a happy ending, you're going to have some angry reviews. If you're talking about a love story where one of your characters dies, you're really in Nicholas Sparks territory, what I like to call a love story. And I know Karen Slaughter I think Karen Slaughter killed a character, and there was some serious pushback on that. I haven't gotten that far because I can only read one. I read Karen Slaughter once every 5 years, because so far in every book, there's been something that pretty much traumatized me. So it takes me time to get over it. Great writer. Just, yeah, that's going in a very visceral reaction. All right. So if you're writing a cozy, what I was just told by my editor was no curse words, no sexy times on the page. I'm like, okay, I'll hire somebody to take out my curse words, and I'll just delete the sexy times if I accidentally write them. If you're writing romantic suspense, on the other hand, the sexy times is often the point. So and if you're writing a thriller or historical, there's more leniency and you can kind of make your own way. Now, romance in a series, again, if you want to see that idea of how one author like pushes couples forward and pulls them back, if you look at Nancy Cohen's Writing a Cozy Mystery, let me see if I can pull up the cover for you. I have this one on Kindle. Yeah. So Nancy J. Cohen, how could I forget the J? Nancy J. Cohen's Writing the Cozy Mystery, which I found just very helpful in general, but she's got a section on romance and mystery, and she goes through her own books and shows you like where she brought the couples together and what tore them apart. And she does it pretty much by book. So like maybe they get together, and then there's some doubts, and then he introduces her to the daughter, so they're back together, but then, you know, this other thing happens. So that's a good place to go. One series that I'm planning to revisit as I start to write my book that I think does an excellent slow burn romance is Deanna Rayburn's Victoria, goodness gracious, Kilpatrick, Veronica Speedwell series. Has anybody read those? Deanna Rayburn's Veronica Speedwell? Yes, no, maybe. There's a slow burn between butterfly catcher Veronica Speedwell and taxidermist Stoker, and it is good stuff. I mean, I was just reading it for fun, but it's set in Victorian England, which you may or may not kind of like historicals. In a standalone, you might hit all of those areas that we talked about in one book. I think one that I thought was a lot of fun is there is a Jennifer Cruzy, and I can't remember, Bob Mayer, I think is who she wrote it with, called Agnes and the Hitman. That one was a lot of fun for a romantic suspense. And Agatha Christie, of course, she has romance. It really surprised me as I was doing a lot of rereading, but romance plays a huge part in several of her books, whether you're talking about Tommy and Tuppence, who get together in The Secret Adversary and then work together as a husband and wife team, or Easy to Kill is another one where the guy, he falls in love with the woman while they're solving the murder together. I was trying to think of another one, but also you can also have romance as a subplot. Let's really get into the weeds here. And this is another thing that Agatha Christie does well. I remember I was rereading The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, and the maid is in love with the guy who's Roger Ackroyd's stepson, I think it is. And that's just another thing for your characters to hold as secrets. But it also gives your characters a couple to root for if you don't want to have your couple or your main sleuth get together with somebody in the book, if that makes any sense. Like, we're rooting for those crazy kids. Other examples, Elizabeth Peters, Crocodile on a Sandbank, Peabody and Emerson get together in book 1. I want to say in the In Death series, Roark and Eve Dallas get together in book 1. Tommy and Tuppence I mentioned. Dorothy Sayers, she has Lord Peter Wimsey and Harriet Vane. The Thin Man series, which personally I like the movie a little better than the book, especially that first one. But if you really want some ideas of how to have your husband and wife team work together, that's a great one. And another one that I really like is Tess Gerritsen has some interesting ones. She has Jane Rizzoli meet Gabriel Dean in, I believe, book 2 in the series. By book 3 of the series, she's pregnant and they're getting married. But at the same time, she's got Mara Isles having an affair with the priest, Daniel Brophy. And that's your ultimate push me, pull me, your ultimate conflict. We love each other, but he's a priest and he won't give up his orders. And that push me, pull me kind of gives them something to do through books 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I want to say they break up permanently somewhere like 10 or 11, but then she has to go knock on his door again in 12. I think that's just a good example too of how if you have 2 characters working together, you can use the romantic subplot to kind of propel the story forward and alternate between those 2 characters, maybe. All right, so that is, I've already shown you Nancy Cohen, I've shown you Romancing the Beat. If you're looking for a way to kind of put subplot into your main story, this Break Into Fiction is another book that I use. It has templates in it, and it also talks about subplots, which is what your romance would be in a mystery. I mentioned Goals, Motivation, and Conflict, which is a Deb Dixon book. This one is great for so far as just it does have internal conflict in it too, just kind of to map out who your characters are and make sure they're not treading water. And then this one, I haven't used it yet. It's Mastering Suspense, Structure, and Plot by Jane K. Cleland, but it has one page in particular that really fascinated me as a way to put together the main mystery, and then it has subplots on either side, and it just kind of walks you through where you should have a twist, a reversal, a danger, and twists, reversals, and dangers could apply to romance as well. So hopefully that answered some questions and I gave you some food for thought, but do you have any questions? What did I forget? What question do you have that I forgot to address? A list of the books I recommended. Oh, Miss Silver always has two people fall in love and have difficulties. List of the books. I will gladly do that for you as well. Any other questions?
Hi, I'm Christy. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so I have a book one that's unpublished, and it has a male sheriff and a female epidemiologist.
Mhm.
But I guess I've kind of taken in the concept that you need to write some books before you can write a book. So I've kind of mentally at least set it aside. So in the second book, they are romantically involved, but they do have challenges in that they don't live in the same place.
Okay.
She quit her job because of an illegal activity they did together for a good cause, but
Okay.
so he feels guilty about that, and he's not sure he's going to run for sheriff again. So there are a lot of things going on that will they stay together? Will they not? Is this practical? I
This
mean, the
all
plot
sounds
can't
good.
work without them knowing each other at this point. So I realized that I've kind of broken the rules that all of the things you talked about happened in one book in terms of the intimacy, steps of intimacy, but it was a very, situation was very dangerous
Mhm.
and things were moving fast. So now they've really got to figure out the reality. Is that,
Well, I
My-
mean, the rules are meant to be broken, and I've given, or I like to say anything that involves writing, it's like the Pirates Code. You watched Pirates of the Caribbean, it's the Pirates Code. It's just a guideline. So
okay.
no, I don't hold the ultimate answers to all things. And some of the examples I gave you, they go through all of the stages of romance in the first book.
Okay.
Definitely Crocodile on a Sandbank with Emerson and Peabody. is
Yes, I know
one.
that book very well. Yes.
Tommy and Tuppence, they go through the whole thing in Tommy and Tuppence, The Secret Adversary. I think it's Naked in Death is the first in death book. The first in death book, they definitely go through the whole thing. I think, and I don't know how many of you watch TV, but this is like one of my great frustrations with TV. We will say once they get the couple together, the show ends. I think Moonlighting is a classic example of that. If any of you ever watched Castle,
Yeah.
when they got Beckett and Castle together, but I still think that a lot of that has to do with a lack of imagination on the part of the writers, because there was still a lot of things that Beckett and Castle had to work through. Plus you had this other cast of characters that you could have worked with to kind of add conflict. And shoot, you got a murder mystery every week. That's your external conflict. So you can kind of back up that internal, but people tend to freak out. They get couples together and they freak. And I'm like, just stop, take a moment, think about the things we all go through when we get together and we realize this person likes to use our favorite coffee cup and leave it in the other room instead of putting it in the sink. Or maybe it's more serious, like these couple, they have a whirlwind romance, they get together and then they discover, I want kids, I don't want kids. There are all kinds of things that your couples can still work through. Or like you said, she has had to quit her job, he's thinking about not keeping his job. Maybe you got some gift of the Magi energy going on. She knows he's happiest when he's a sheriff.
Right.
But
there's a lot going on.
He's guilty. He feels guilty that she had to leave her epidemiologist job. And I think that's why traditionally, a lot of times, you have characters. Remember how I said you're looking for people who are the best and the worst person for this character? Why you have so many amateur sleuths falling in love with police officers, or police officers and private investigators, or in the case of Rizzoli and Isles, a police officer and an FBI agent, because there's a lot of natural friction there and a lot of what was the one I was thinking of? Oh, Joanna Fluke. And I only read book one, so I don't know who she's going to end up with. But, you know, she's sneaking into buildings. Well, if she's got the hots for a police officer, he's going to have to cart her in for breaking and entering, right? So any kind of conflict you can put together right there to kind of play against the romance. And maybe your sheriff, he gets reelected and she gets another job and they're still at loggerheads. They're still.
Okay. Thanks.
There
Sure.
seems to
Yes.
there seems to be an unwritten law which makes me very angry that if the couple get married, that's the end of the series.
Oh, it drives me nuts. I'm like, there's so many other things you can do with this couple. And why, if they're solving crime, especially in a mystery, if they're solving a crime, why do you have to make them unhappy? For heaven's sake, Nick and Nora Charles are a delight, right? They're
Right.
fun to watch. Well, Tommy and Tuppence too. And really, I think Agatha Christie was pretty progressive there, because I remember, I think it was book 2 I'm reading, and Tommy's like, oh, Tuppence will be all right. It's just completely, she always comes out all right in the end. So you're really looking for, to me, if you have a married couple, a lot of mutual respect. You want to avoid a lot of the pitfalls of people who write romance who don't really love it, what we used to call bicker books. People just arguing for no reason. Nobody needs that in their life, especially not in a mystery, because they're going to want to work together. Let's see here. Are there things readers don't like about how romance is handled in novels? I think this is a good one. I think I talked about this before. If you have a beloved couple and you break them up or you kill one of them after you get them together, woe to you. There are people who will swear not to read another one of your books ever again, and I might be one of them. I think, like I said, the bickering. Now, banter is another story. If you got two characters who, and I think a great example of that again is Peabody and Emerson in Crocodile on a Sandbank. The two of them are just kind of bantering with each other. But it needs to go somewhere. You can't just carry on like that. I think one of the biggest complaints I have seen, and I'm just getting to the point where I'm talking to more mystery editors and more mystery writers. I've been an amateur reader. Now I'm going into the writer's side. But that love triangle, the Stephanie Plum love triangle, woo, be careful with those love triangles, because people will get ticked off about that too. The danger there is if you've got two equally compelling characters like Morelli and Ranger, people are going to pick their favorites. And again, they're going to expect your character to make a decision before book 28, I think. That's kind of my take on that. All right, I think I've covered that. I will get a list of books when we're done with Q&A.
A quick
Any
question.
other? Yes.
Saying something. So what do you, if I'm understanding this right, you're saying banter is okay, but once when it crosses into bickering can be not, is that what you were trying to say? Okay.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. That's what we used to call a bicker book, is when characters would pick fights with each other for no good reason other than the fact that the author needed to keep them apart. Does that make sense? It's kind of the same idea of when we as authors move our characters like chess pieces because we need them to move, but we haven't taken the time to motivate them. We used to talk a lot about, you'd have a character, let's say you have a character who is afraid of spiders. You can't just have that character go into a room with spiders, or maybe snakes would be better. You can't have this character go stepping into a muddy ditch that could be full of cottonmouths unless you have a very good reason, like the character needs to escape someone and this is the only way, or the character needs to rescue someone. The same goes for your arguments. If your characters are going to have an argument, it needs to be a really good reason for one. Like, for example, your amateur sleuth, like I said, has been breaking and entering, and the police officer not only resents having to take them in for breaking the law, but also is worried about their safety. That's a good argument. Just having them argue because you feel like you need to break them up, not a good reason. The Hannah Swenson books are a perfect example of a love triangle that went on too long. I didn't even make it that far. I've only read one. So many books to read though, right, guys? And I'm currently working my way through all of Agatha Christie just because. Other questions about romance? Anything I didn't address? Anything you want me to add? I have my handout now. It's a bare bones outline. So it's not everything I said, but it does have the books at the end as well as the general basis of what I said. If that would be helpful, I can definitely email that over. Would that be?
Yes.
Would you like that? All right, I'll happily do that. Old high school teacher, you got to do lesson plans before you do the speech, right? Any other questions though? Oh, Flaky Conflict, which is apparent the author. Yep, that's what I'm talking about. If you want real conflict, you need to really think about that. One good way to manufacture conflict is have two characters with the same goal, but they both can't win that goal. So keep that in mind. Like maybe they're both up for the same position at work. There's only one position at work, but they're both competing for it. Endless Night. I haven't read Endless Night, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. Other questions? All right. Number one thing you need to know about romance and romantic subplots. There is only one rule. There's only one rule for romance novels, and that is the happily ever after. That's it. That's it. You want a successful romance? Your two characters get together and they stay together. They may come up with, if it's a long running series, there may be complications along the way, but the reader needs to know that they're going to get together. Anything else is kind of a love story. Oh, thanks for the great presentation. Do readers care if either is divorced? Used to hear that people could be previously married. For the cozy mystery, or if you're writing anything inspirational, that might come into play. But these days, I would hope to goodness that people could be divorced or widowed or anything like that. Oh, I would say infidelity is another button for a lot of people. Like, I'm not sure it quite qualifies for a romance if it's infidelity, especially not in a cozy. But yeah, other than that, I would say, I mean, the basic rules apply. Let's hope both of your characters are of age. Consent's important. Once you get them together, don't break them up, don't kill anybody. These are just kind of the basic rules for a successful romance. All right, I think that's it. I will send over my handout and I will type in, before I go, I'll type in the books as well. If you don't have any other questions, I had a lot of fun. Hope.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Did somebody say they had a question? Yeah, I had a question for you. So
Yes.
do you have any questions for us now that you're embarking on a mystery road, co-writing cozy mystery? There's several authors here, and there's also several voracious readers of mysteries who can tell you what they like and don't like in mystery. So if you have anything for us, we'd be happy to help.
I'd love to. Do any of you, I'm going to stop and type in my resources, but do any of you have books or articles or things that you swear by? Especially because I think one of the reasons why I love mystery is, like I said before, there are conventions in a romance novel. There are beats that you hit, like the meet cute, for example, or the dark moment of the soul. Are there any resources that you have that you would like to share with me as I write my first one? Anybody have favorites?
Before anybody answers, there's also a question from Ann Bennett saying, this is not in a cozy. What do you think of a romance developing from a college age?
Oh, you can do that. You can do that. That's like one of the, okay, I probably should have talked a little bit more about romance tropes, but that's another way you can kind of structure it, is look at some of those I think we would call that one like friends with benefits. Like we're just going to get together and we're going to have the sexy times, but then feelings develop. Just kind of like I mentioned, enemies to lovers. That's another trope. Another fun one you could throw in to add tension between your love interests is they go to a hotel. There's one bed. That's one of the
Happens a lot.
yeah, it's one of those great tropes. There's only one bed. Another one is snowed in. You end up in a place and you're stuck together. How to Write a Damn Good Mystery. I have that one. I may need to reread it. It's been a while since I read that one. Thank you. But yeah, absolutely. Anytime you have characters who cultivate a depth of feeling for each other and that love is genuine, yeah, you can make it work.
I think J.D. Robb does a fantastic job. Nora Roberts, actually, but
Oh yeah.
with those in-depth books, that
I love it.
relationship between Rourke and
Mhm.
Alice is just phenomenal, and it has traveled well.
I mean, Nora Roberts is on the romance side. We call her La Nora because all hail. I think the in-depth books are also a great example of mystery suspense with a romantic element. They make a great couple.
Karen Slaughter did that too with her early books when the I can't remember where those were set, but it was in
Yes. This is book 2. I think this is book 2. Small Georgia town. Sarah Linton and her ex-husband Jeffrey Tolliver, but then they got together in the
Yeah.
first book. This is the second one. I can't remember what the first one was. It's like I said, Karen Slaughter, there's going to be somebody's teeth are going to be pulled out with pliers or something, and I have to take a break, kind of like the old Friends episode where Joey was scared about he would get scared with The Shining and he'd put the book in the freezer. Sometimes I have to put Karen Slaughter in the freezer, but she writes so well, I always come back. Let's see here. I think I got
great
all of
presentation.
them.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. There are those books. I'll send the Conflict and Suspense. Oh, I don't have that one. And okay, those are 2 new authors to me, Annette Deshafi and Julie Mulhern. Excellent. Thanks, y'all. Any pitfalls I should look for in my mystery? Anyone? What should I not do?
Well, they have to solve the crime. Justice has to be.
Okay. Oh,
justice
don't worry
has to
about
be
that.
served.
Justice will be served.
Sometimes they kind of cop
Don't
out.
kill
They
the
always
cat.
have the bad guy get killed or something like that before he doesn't really escape justice. I've seen a lot of mysteries where,
Oh, no, we're not going to do that.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know Jay Mag is
cliffhangers. That most, especially in cozies, they don't like cliffhangers.
Okay. I don't like cliffhangers either. I feel like I may have finally found my genre. I was talking to the cozy editor and I said, my women's fiction books, part of the problem is I have a critique partner who writes for Harlequin, and she would say, Sally, this is before I got published, every time you tend to veer even the least bit towards commercial, you make a decision and go in the opposite direction. And I was talking with the cozy editor the other day, and I said, I really feel like maybe as long as I have somebody take out all the curse words that I accidentally put in the manuscript, and like I said, get rid of the sexy times, that a cozy might be a spot where I could be me. Could I by any chance have a pet possum with one of my sleuths? She said, absolutely, have that pet possum. I'm like, yes, I may have found my people.
That's kind of an unusual pet to have.
It's a long
But
story.
Liz has one with one of her characters has a pig, one of those potbelly pigs. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
the pig always has some funny antics.
Exactly.
But a lot of cozies have cats or dogs or,
Oh, there'll be a cat too. There's going to be a cat as well. I got to have my cat. I have my cats. So, okay.
Another thing is that the protagonist, the sleuth, has to have some motivation for solving the murder. Maybe they're accused of the murder, or somebody close to them is accused of the murder, so they want to prove that the cops the cops arrest the wrong person, so they're out to prove find the real killer.
I'm gonna have her, she is looking for her missing aunt. Her aunt disappeared in 1994.
Then is the aunt gonna turn up dead, or do we know?
I haven't decided yet because I'm still in the planning stages and I'm still kind of working on the overarching theme. And I don't know if I want to solve that mystery in this book or if I want that mystery of where the aunt is to hang over like several books.
She's still doing it, and then maybe she comes across a dead body, and while she's searching for the
Exactly.
aunt.
Yeah, there will be in the course of the investigation, there's obviously another murder. At least
Yeah,
one.
I've seen a lot of them usually have another person. A lot of times, one of the main people who's one of the main suspects ends up getting murdered. So then, okay, that person didn't do it, or maybe
Yep,
somebody,
yes.
or maybe somebody has a secret. They look very suspicious, and then maybe the secret comes out in the middle, and it's something that explains why their behavior is squirrely or suspicious.
Yeah, I was watching.
But they didn't do it. So now all of a sudden, everybody thinks that it's this person, and the secret comes out, and that's why that's the explanation. But now you've got to turn your attention to somebody else.
That's one I love. And one of the things I discovered as I was rereading, author of, let me answer that one first. Mastering Suspense, Structure, and Plot. That author is Jane K. Cleland.
And she does a lot of webinars now, like monthly webinars on different elements. So in fact, I think there's one this afternoon.
This book, I read it. I haven't really absorbed it, but like I said, the one thing was this one chart where she'd kind of broken it out. And I love things like this. I don't know about you guys, but I need to know. I was talking to the cozy editor and she's like, okay, your sweet spot's going to be 73 to 75,000 words. Awesome. Love it. Thank you for that guideline. I love to have a book like this one that tells you need to have a twist or reversal or danger every so many pages. It's not to say that I feel that I'm confined by that, but it's just it's a guideline.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, she has a whole webinar on that structure, on structuring your mystery. So you might check her website. And
I'll go check that out as well. And I need to write down some of these other authors that y'all have so kindly given me.
I would say, and I don't read a lot of cozies, so I have to preface that. I am not loving the information dumps and backstories at the beginning. I'm normally not in favor, and some cozies do so much of that.
Oh wow,
that's not my. That's not.
Yeah,
what
we're not supposed to do that in pretty much any genre, except maybe literary. You know, if you're writing literary, you can.
Yeah, and I have cozy. I'm reading cozy now because our author was recommended, and it's a series, and I am just struggling to muddle through the beginning, which she had prologue, and then the first however many pages are still a backstory. So that's a part that I don't enjoy as a reader. And yeah, so that's my big pet peeve. Everybody here had heard me talk about it, so yeah.
I don't blame you. Well, if you write well enough, I'll let you get away with just about anything. I think ultimately one of the kind of books that I would like to write is a Leanne Moriarty type, and I'm just not structurally ready for that. Apples Never Fall was just all those little pieces that came together in the end. That was some good stuff. The Miss Silver series. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, and I had also gotten into, have any of you read Craig Rice? Apparently they're re-releasing some of her stuff, and she was at one time the quote unquote American Agatha Christie. But she has a romance in The Eight Faces of Three. I can't remember exactly how that one goes. A good one of hers is called Home Sweet Homicide, and it's solved by the three kids who are simultaneously solving the mystery and trying to set their mom up with the police inspector. It's cute. And of course there's Miss Fisher, but I don't think Miss Fisher, the book, is going to go like Miss Fisher, the TV series. Again, amateur sleuth, police officer. Although I was told that was cliched and to avoid that, but to each their own. All right, 11:31. I don't want to keep y'all too long. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your help and I have enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Sally. This was
you.
fantastic. Thank
Oh,
you all
thank
for
you.
joining us. Yeah,
you.
we have a recording of this session and we'll make it available. And thank you, Sally. This was really great. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'm going to send you my outline, such as it is, in just a second. All right.
Okay.
Y'all have a great Saturday. Happy writing. May all the words come to you
Happy
today
Valentine's.
and every day.
Thanks.
Thank you.